listening to Podium Podcast with Simon Hartley and Tom May. This is the show that invites the world's top athletes to discuss life in and after professional sport. Podium Podcast is brought to you by True Potential Wealth Management. To find out more, visit domorewithyourmoney.co.uk.
Simon, we haven't had a cricketer on the Podium Podcast yet.
No, I know. This is going to be really interesting for me. I've worked in cricket for many, many years. And although Simon probably won't remember it because I was quite young and he was quite young, I'm pretty sure I came across him when I was working in and around the England setup many, many, many years ago. So yeah, it'd be really interesting. The other thing I noticed when I did a little Wikipedia search earlier, apparently he was voted the 9th most sexiest man in the world by New Woman magazine.
I'll let you ask him that, mate.
I don't think I'll bother.
No, exactly. Keep that one to yourself. That could be one of your facts down the pub. But he's had some interesting an interesting end to his career, like some big injuries, dealt with a fair bit, and I know he's got some stories tucked away. So it'd be good to try and get to the bottom of that. Yeah,
absolutely. And there are so many potential lessons in all of those challenges. It'd be really interesting to see how he's using them in life and in his own business now.
Let's get cracking.
Let's get cracking.
Simon Jones, good to have you with us.
Cheers, Tom. Thank you for having me.
It'll be good. It's the first Welshman we've had on. So,
oh really?
Set the standards. Yes.
Get a token taffy on, isn't it?
How are you? You good? What's keeping you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
What's keeping you? I'm
working with an independent insurance broker now, Kerry London. I've been there with them for nearly 2 years. The frustrating thing at the time was I'd started just before lockdown, so my role as business development exec was severely hindered with Zoom calls and not being able to get out. But thankfully, yeah, I'm really enjoying it now and still learning on the job. You know, every day's a learning day, as they say. But look, it's a great job. My boss, Dean Calaz, he's brilliant with me, so supportive, so I can't complain.
A bit like myself, it's been a while since you retired. Did it take you some time to find out where you're going to end up, or talk us through some of the process of that?
It was tough, very tough. I've not spoken to many ex-sports people who haven't struggled. I think the major thing I struggled with was structure. I struggled with focus, and I struggled with that competitive element as well, not being tested every day. It was just almost as if you feel a little bit lost at times. So I went in and out of jobs. I did a lot of ambassador role jobs for companies. Didn't feel really fulfilled with them. Then I worked at a private school in Cardiff. Did enjoy that, to be fair, really good around sport and, just seeing children progress through the lessons, etc. But it wasn't what I wanted to do long term. So I was at an event in London and I met Dean, who I mentioned earlier, Dean Calaz. Who's the MD at Kerry London. And we got chatting about opportunities, what I could do for them. And I went through a formal interview then with Imogen, who's the big boss. And yeah, we haven't looked back. And it's been a steep learning curve. Sitting behind a laptop more or less every day is tough. It's not what I'm used to. But at the end of the day, that's life, isn't it? You gotta get on with it. And as long as you're enjoying your role, then that's half the battle.
So you couldn't wait to get on a platform like this when you've been on Zoom for the whole
lot. It's all right now because you can get out and about, isn't it? But I think if we'd done this at the time, we might have, I'd been a bit down in the dumps, I think, doing another Zoom call. Look, it's a fantastic way to communicate. This has come through lockdown. It's an immense way of still keeping contact with people and keeping your business going, really.
Did you have a plan for post cricket set up in your mind, or did you have any idea what you wanted to do?
No, I didn't know. there's the conventional route of going down coaching roles, being a fast bowling coach, etc. For me, I didn't really see massive security in that. And the other part of it was with my young lads. I wanted to see them. I'd done 18, 19 years of professional cricket. I didn't want to be on the road again, away with the team for 2 or 3 weeks, etc. So it was a double-edged sword, really, because I'd love to have still been involved in a game I love and adored, but there's times where you have to give back a little bit to the family as well and spend some more time there.
I do. I get asked that a fair bit, actually. Like, why didn't you go into coaching? And I think I would have been the most frustrated coach ever. but B, I think like everyone's sacrificed quite a lot for whatever athlete you see on the TVs. There's a lot of people that have sacrificed a lot. Not only that athlete, but a wider range of people around them.
Yeah,
and everything that's crap about professional sport applies 100% to the coaches. But you don't get the good bit of playing.
Yeah.
And whenever something goes wrong, it's your fault, not the blokes on the field.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, I'm not sure that's for me.
No, I think, as you said, the pros would be good, but then the cons would be massive because, as you said, the responsibility lies with you as a coach. Then the questions get asked of you rather than the players at times, and that can be a frustration because you want to see players doing their roles, but then you remember how you did it, and then I think the frustration can set in is why can't you do it?
It's interesting. I've always wondered. Sorry, Simon. Just to pick up on a point that the other Simon just came up with. Within cricket, it must be incredibly difficult to be away from families and loved ones for so long, and it's all the time.
Yeah.
Like you look at cricket now. I don't think it's probably the worst it's ever been in terms of players are just here, there, and everywhere. Yeah. I was away for what was supposed to be 4 weeks that turned into 8 weeks during the Japan World Cup. Yeah. And it felt like a lifetime. Yeah. That's probably often missed, I think, Simon Hartley, with regards to sports people and the wider relationships they have with the families and friends that miss them, and then miss them being at home, right?
Oh, completely. I mean, I can remember a conversation with a friend of mine who I suspect Simon Jones will know very well, who was, I think, England cricket's first ever fitness coach. I'm sure you came across Dean Riddle. I'm not going to say you might have fond memories of him because I suspect he made you run around fields and pick up weights and nonsense. Yeah. But I do remember him saying to me that, he'd been part of that setup for a couple of years and essentially he missed the first 2 years of his daughter's life. And that's a huge trade to have to make, to be involved in any kind of profession. I mean, I remember when I was working in pro football, we went about 3 months without a day off, and that's kind of normal in those environments. And I think like you said, for players often, particularly in the early part of your career, maybe players at that time haven't got wife, kids, husbands, whatever, and therefore actually it's easier to do than if you do have a family at home, particularly a young family that might need you around a little bit more, and you might need to be around them. But it's the stuff that people watching it on the TV never see. I mean, they don't see that it's not just the training; it's the amount of travel that is involved and all that sort of stuff as well. And it's it's all consuming. It's incredibly tiring as well.
Simon Jones, how does that? I'm going to try and stop using full names in a minute. But how do you find that from a mental perspective? And Hartley's.
There you go.
How did you find that from the perspective of mental well-being when you're away and you're missing your family? And I found that incredibly difficult. And we'd only go away for 2 nights when we were playing. But
I was quite lucky. Early part of my career, I had no real ties back home. I was a single lad just going around the world playing cricket. And it was one of the things I was in scenarios when we were in, a lot of the lads struggling with it. And because of the position I was in, I didn't understand it. I just didn't understand it. But then when I had my boys and I was still playing, and I go away for a few nights, I totally understood it then, because you do miss them. And it's just one of those things that you try and get used to, but I don't think you ever do. And like some of the tours we'd gone were 3.5, nearly 4 months. So the lads who had families at the time, they'd be able to see the wives and the children would come out for like a 10, 14-day period of that 4 months.
Yeah.
And that was it, really, I think. So it's still a heck of a long time away from your loved ones. And you see them as a support. They could be your sounding boards, can't they? You go home and you chat to the wife or your girlfriend, wherever it is, and you kind of vent at times because you don't feel as if maybe you can do it in the change rooms because things are a bit too raw and stuff, and you need time to reflect on how the day's gone or
I
week's
know
gone,
a lot of cricketers who also sort of reflect on the fact that you're always surrounded by basically the same environment, and some players just get to the point where they just need to get away from it. And that phrase, I just need to get away from cricket for a while, because you wake up, you're in a, you might be in nets and you're on a training field, you're in a stadium, you're in a hotel. It's it's a bit Groundhog Day-y. We hope you don't mind us interrupting this episode with a very brief shout out to our partners at the Podium Podcast, True Potential Wealth Management. At True Potential Wealth Management, their mission is to help you do more with your money. Expert financial advice, innovative investments, and leading technology are all designed to put you in control and help you achieve your financial goals. To find out more about their specialist advice, investment opportunities, and pension services, visit domorewithyourmoney.co.uk. That's domorewithyourmoney.co.uk. With investing, your capital is at risk. True Potential Wealth Management LLP is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Thanks for listening. Now, let's get you back to this week's show.
How does the life
It's
stack up
relentless.
way on tour like that? Because it's fine when you're playing, but if you've got a week off in between test matches or whatever it might be, is it literally down tools, play a bit of golf, or were lads actually thinking a bit towards using their time slightly more constructively? Or, I mean, getting your handicap down, don't get me wrong, is very constructive for time spent, but in terms of that transitional process.
I wish I'd played golf. A lot of the lads would play golf as much as they could on tour. It was just a way of getting away from the cricket field and the nets and the gym or whatever it would be. I always felt when I was younger that the day on a golf course isn't really a day of rest. If you're having a bad round and you're happy Gilmoreing all the way around, it's not much fun, is it? You're not going to switch off. But so I used to just chill out in the hotel, maybe see the Fizz, maybe plan some day trips with some of the lads who weren't playing golf. Just get out and about and try and get back to normality. Go down the beach, go and have a swim, whatever it was. Try and relax really and get away from the constant kind of, the constant pressure of the game. During the Ashes in 2005, I lost 8, nearly 9 kilos of body weight. I wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping. It was just a long 2 or 3 months but that was at home in an environment I knew. So we were just traveling around Manchester, Birmingham, London, wherever it was. But still, it was all consuming. I think that is the key: is just trying to find ways just to switch off.
What was that sort of loss of weight around? Was it just the stress of the situation, or?
Yeah. Everywhere you went, you just couldn't get away from it.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, I think I was about 87 kilos when I finished. I was about 94 when I started. So
wow,
95 kilos, something like that. So yeah, it was.
Yeah, as you said, there's actually sort of 2 challenges within this. One is that it becomes all-consuming, and the second is that when you step out of it, because it was all so all-consuming, the structure that you had, you kind of become dependent on. And you find yourself in a real void afterwards, like you said. Which I think is
that
double
structure.
challenge.
It gives you a bit of control, right? The structure. I think that was one of the things when I finished. The only thing I had control over was how fast the goddamn treadmill was going. It's like that was the only thing I could control was what I was eating and what I was what I was doing in the gym. Because outside of that, I suddenly realized there's a huge amount of different forces at play in whatever scenario or environment you find yourself in from a work perspective. I almost became even more obsessive about training, which is just ridiculous, and I'm not sure is a great thing. Did you find that your nature led to a sort of obsessiveness through your career and then out of, or there's certainly something I've experienced?
I think I carried on training after I finished. Obviously nowhere near the intensity that I used to do. I think I'd learned throughout my career, through all the injury rehabs I had to go through, that you just enjoy training on your own. You enjoy being in the gym on your own at times. You can almost distance yourself to a certain extent, which isn't good. But when I finished, then, because I was so used to training on my own, I found it fairly easy. I just go in my garage in the gym I had there and just get a session done, get the endorphins going again. And it was just trying to remain positive, keep good people around you, people who want you to succeed, really. And that's what I try to do anyway.
You mentioned your injuries there. Touch wood, I think it's probably the fact that my limbs are about an inch long and my body's quite short and dumpy. But I didn't necessarily have a huge amount of injuries to contend with during my career. I know you had some severe injuries in and around your knees and stuff like that. How do you think those injuries have actually helped you post-career in terms of what you've learned about yourself and how you deal with sort of the ups and downs of the work environment?
Hugely. I think if you can deal with some of the long-term injuries I had, I think the first one I did was in 2002 in Australia. That was a good 15-month rehab. So that was just doing gym 6 days a week and a day off and then just going again on the Monday. So you learn discipline, you learn to focus on the end goal rather than thinking short term. And I think when you go into a work environment, I think you just need to be really positive. Communication needs to be good. I had to communicate with the people around me, tell them what I was feeling, because they need to read what's going on. They can't feel what I'm reading with my body. So there's lots of things I can think you take from sport into business where you're just very, very focused on the job in hand. I think you just deal with pressure. I think you deal with expectation a heck of a lot better than the normal person. Because every time you go onto a field of play, whether it be rugby, football, cricket, there's someone waiting in that press box or in the crowd or wherever it is, waiting to give their opinion on how you played and what you did that game. So I think you learn to develop broader shoulders and a bit of a water off the duck's back kind of feeling.
Do you sort of look back now you can actually sort of distance yourself until you get out of bed in the morning and go for a piss when your knees are still hurting?
Yeah.
But do you look back at those injuries and think, actually, they taught me a huge amount?
Yeah.
Have you? Is it a positive for you now?
I think that's the only way you can look at it, is to be positive, Tom. At the end of the day, I had the one purpose of each and every rehab that I did, and there was many, of getting back on that field. I was very stubborn upstairs, where I'd like to prove people wrong. I loved being doubted, because then I could look you in the eye when I came back and I could say, right, yeah, you were wrong. And I think that's a certain trait I've always had. I enjoyed it to a certain extent of, right, let's just see how hard you can go. Let's see how much you can push yourself.
Some of the people that have dealt with that level of adversity through their career, when they do bounce back, it's almost you can't get any worse. No. you can't experience anything worse than you've just been through. And I don't know. I think even though I didn't necessarily experience injury to the extent that some others have, even yourself has, I think some of the lows of sport has allowed me to develop that resilience that that we all sort of tend to display. What in terms of your sort of your peers and your teammates, who are those guys that you looked to, and then really is Simon Hartley? There was 4 of you, there was 3 of you, there was a frozen one, there was a robot. Got your back. Who are those people that you look to learn about the skills that they were showing as a player, but also as they got towards the end of their careers, that you thought, right, these are the skills I'm going to have to take out?
I was very lucky with the head coaches I had. Do you know when you instinct? There wasn't anyone I didn't really get along with. I think in terms of them as coaches, they wanted you to put in, and as long as you did, then you were fine. So in terms of work ethic, I was okay with that. I enjoyed working hard and training. But I think the massive thing for me was honesty. I want the coaches to be honest with me about my performance, about what they think my preparation looks like. Do they think they could give me any advice on it? So I was very lucky in that sense, where, say for instance, Rod Marsh, sadly he's no longer with us, the legendary Australian. I had my first experience of him was in 2001 with the England Cricket Academy out in Adelaide, and we had 5 months with Rod, and he was just immense. I mean, immense. One of the best human beings I've ever met in my life. His cricket knowledge was out the top drawer. But if you had a couple of beers the night before a training session, and I wouldn't advocate that, but it happens, as long as you put in the next day, he was absolutely fine. And he was just like, I came back from that academy tour, and my dad said to me, "You're a different bloke. You really are." And I was like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "The belief you have now and the confidence you have in your ability, that wasn't there before." And he put it down to Rod Marsh. But in terms of other mentors or people who guided me, it was my dad. He played for England before me. Unfortunately, he retired early at 26 with an elbow injury. So he was the one person I could go to, which no one else in that dressing room that I played in had. They had someone who'd actually been there, played at the top level, and was going to be brutally honest with me, and understood what having a bad day was like. He said, "Boy, you can have bad days and good days." He said, "You just have to take them on the chin. Yeah. Tomorrow's another day. You start again." And I was very lucky with the people I had around me.
Do you think that was helpful? Do you think it was useful to you that he'd had to retire through injury? What did he sort of pass on to you about that experience?
The odd thing is he doesn't like talking about it, because I think he felt that his career had been robbed, basically. By the time he was 24, 25, he'd taken over 600 first-class wickets. That's unreal. Yeah. He bowled more overs in that time than I did in my whole career. So he doesn't really talk to me about that stuff. He just tries to remain positive, and he's always had that kind of outlook on life. Yeah. And that's why I try and look at it. Yeah, right. This is a chance to work on other parts of your game that you need to work on. Just don't focus solely on that left knee. Focus on your batting, your fielding, your catching, your fitness, whatever it may be. Just try and look at it as a positive rather than a negative.
Mm. So, Simon Hartley, you must have dealt with and spoken with and worked with a lot of sports people, whether they're individual sports people or team sports, where they've had to deal with injury, and that's taught them. It's almost changed them as people.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think are the sort of benefits of or the positives of being injured?
I mean, as you guys have said, being able to navigate the lows and almost get a different sense of perspective around them, I think is key. A couple of the athletes I've worked with who have done really well out of injuries learned how to use them as an opportunity. I can remember one of them who was a breaststroke swimmer. He had a lower back injury, and the coach said, and the physio said, well, you can't swim for whatever it was, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. And his first thought was, well, that doesn't mean I can't get in the pool. It doesn't mean I can't do anything. What could I work on? And actually the wider point here, and actually something that just before I dropped out of the call, I was listening to you guys talking about, was the ability to work on your own game, which I don't think is just important in sport or athletic pursuits. The ability to work on your own game in any field of professional life, I think, is massive. Sort of essentially be your own coach, because most great athletes, they can coach themselves. The coach is like a resource to them. They're not dependent on the coach. They use the coach. They use everyone around them. But essentially, they're in charge of their own development. And I think that's a huge, huge trait to take into any walk of life.
It's interesting. I was watching an England rugby session recently, and Henry Arundel has obviously burst onto the scene from an England perspective at playing at fullback, and he has the ability to run 100 meters on a rugby pitch like I've not seen anyone run 100 meters on a rugby pitch. And I was chatting to someone about him, and I didn't realize actually that, I think it was at the beginning of last year. I think that's right. He tore his hamstring in half. There was a period of time where he tore his hamstring in half, and he couldn't run. So he just was in the gym going, right, this is my opportunity as a young lad to go and bulk up. And now when you see him hit people or be hit by people, he just bounces off, because he's developed that ability through adversity to work on his game, work on his physicality. And now, it's probably that ability to ride tackles. It's his pace that people are talking about. And that's come through him having that injury. So I guess, there's something to be taken from that, Simon Hartley, in terms of sport to business. You will be on your arse at times when you're in the office environment or the work environment. You've got to find a way to get back to the top.
Completely. It's about looking for the opportunities. If you don't look for them, you won't see them. I actually was sharing with a group last week of business leaders that there's a little cycle I call the resilience cycle. And basically it starts by understanding that everybody has tough experiences, but not everybody learns from them. Some people learn from them because they're tuned in. You've got to be active in that process. You've got to look for the lessons. And even from the people who learn from it, not all of them go on to use what they've learned to become better equipped. And even fewer go on to appreciate the fact that whilst the experience was tough, it was really, really useful and valuable. And if you go through the cycle of not just having the experience, but learning from it, using it and appreciating the value of it, you then naturally look for the opportunity in the next one as it comes along. You see the tough stuff coming and you think, it's tough, I know, but actually this could be really useful for me. And so you end up seeing more of the opportunities because you look for them. And the more you go around that cycle, the more chance you've got of bouncing back stronger from whatever hits you. Rather than just getting back up, you actually get back stronger. And that for me is kind of encapsulates resilience.
Simon, during your cricket career, you've had the opportunity to play with some absolute goddamn lunatics. I bet you thought I was going to say like world beaters, which of course you've played with those as well. But I'm more interested in the absolute lunatics. Who are the best players that you've played with? Who are the craziest on the beers? And let's in on some stories.
Some of the best I've played with. Look, you can't go far wrong with the side we had in 2005. It was such a well balanced side. We were lucky in the sense that we'd been together for over 4 years. So the dressing room was balanced. It was relaxed. It was almost like going into your living room. There was no issues there. There was no egos. It was just a good place to be, a nice place to be. And, if you can find that environment in professional sport, then you're laughing. Lunatics, obviously Fred's up there.
Hoggy's got to be in there, sure.
Andrew Flintoff. Hoggard, yeah. I call him the social hand grenade.
There's always one. There's always one.
Oh, he's he's Hoggy was because he's really intelligent. Hog, brilliant in maths and physics and that. He wanted to be a vet, but he just when you're walking around with him and you're in a social environment, you do worry some of the things he's going to come up with.
The corporate do with sponsors where you roll it in. Oh.
Yeah, and he's had a couple of beers, makes it 10 times worse. But it's just like towards the end of that. Oh yeah, but the end of the 05 bus tour, the last stop was 10 Downing Street, and obviously Tony Blair had seen it as a massive opportunity to get some PR going. England, the first time they won the Ashes in 18 years or whatever it was, but I don't think he kind of understood that having us at his house the next day wasn't going to end well. Most of us hadn't obviously been to bed or anything like that. And I think his face changed as soon as he saw us getting off the bus. Fred, one of his eyes was working, he looked like a cyclops. And then we're all coming off the bus, and we've had a lovely tour of the house, etc. It's brilliant. But then as we're leaving, obviously we've come out with the front door, and they've lined us all up, and Tony Blair's in there. And there was just a load of people on the other side of the road. And I was next to Hoggard, and he was next to Tony Blair. And I was thinking, this isn't ending well. They can't.
Tactical genius. Put those two each other.
Yeah. So Tony Blair has said to Hoggy, I wonder what all these people want. And he said, a picture, you knobhead.
Oh my God. What was his reaction?
Yeah, he was absolutely stunned. And he said, right, time to go. And he ushered us back on the bus.
he said he's pushing you away.
Yeah, he got rid of us all. Yeah, on the bus, you crack. But yeah, look, there's a couple of examples of Hoggy. He's one of my best friends. I love him to bits, and we keep in touch all the time now, constantly. But yeah, it's, those are good days. They're good days. There's a couple of other stories I could tell, but I don't think they'd be suitable.
Is there one that involves a toilet in a garden?
Oh yeah, that was me.
Oh, was it you?
Yeah.
Was that you?
Yeah.
Oh, I've completely taken the bus.
Yeah, I had a wee in his back garden. I was caught short. It's like when you break the seal. And I just didn't know where the toilets were, so I just found the nearest bush and tried to hide behind it. And
when you learn that 10 Downing Street doesn't have a downstairs toilet.
There was that
an outside one.
Yeah. I could. I thought I had my invisibility cloak on. No one's going to see me. I'll be flying. But yeah,
I love it.
It was. Now.
Do you miss that, or are you quite happy to confine that to the past?
Are you?
I don't mean pissing in the Prime Minister's garden. I just mean.
Do you know what I miss? And you'll feel it. You guys will feel it. If you've not seen your friends or ex-teammates for say 2, 3, maybe longer, 4 years, when you see each other, it's like you've never ever been apart. Because that's the bond, the strength of the bond that you have. And I do miss seeing them more frequently. It would be nice to catch up with them all, but we've all got lives to live, we've all got jobs that you need to obviously work at. And it's one of those things, it's almost as if you want to try and get 2 or 3 reunions a year, but it's just not possible with everyone's diaries and stuff.
Yeah.
But one thing I miss is the camaraderie, just having banter with you and enjoying it.
That's one of the missed opportunities Tom and I have discussed before, that actually you could get something similar, maybe not the same in a corporate team, but it's a missed opportunity. It just doesn't happen that people develop that kind of camaraderie that we're talking about very often. But it's really powerful when you get it.
Oh yeah, it's special, isn't it?
So we're not going to get more light-hearted than having a pee in that bush, but we've got a few questions that we always draw the podcast to a close with. So it'll be interesting to see what your answers are. If you hadn't been a professional athlete, what would you have been? And is there another vocation that took your interest?
Anything outdoorsy. I'd hate to just be stuck in a enclosed space day in, day out. It's a bit of a boring answer, really, but my old man always told me to get a trade when I was a kid. Become a plumber, a carpenter, electrician, wherever it was. And to a certain extent, at times you think back and maybe I should have taken his advice, but he's so encapsulated in playing the sport you love. Like, I turned pro when I was 15 and a half. So for me to look at other options then, when I was just doing a job I wanted to do, that I've always dreamt of doing, you kind of don't think of those options. So yeah, anything outdoorsy, probably something to do with gym, just anything physical, and as long as I'm outdoors.
Next one. Who's the person in sport and business that you admire the most?
Business. Look, where I grew up in Llanelli, there's a family there called the Owens. Now they've been in the haulage industry for years, and I've known that family since I was like 3 years old. And just to see where they are now, they're massive. They've grown so much, and it's just purely down to determination and drive from all of them. Their father, Hugh, and Ira, his brother, started the business. I know the boys have gradually come in and taken over. Ian is the boss there now, and Darren was my age, and then Dave is the youngest. But they're doing brilliantly. They really are fantastically well. So I'm really proud to see that. In terms of sport, I think any sport person I see that is driven, wants it, leaves it all up in the field. Like, one of my favourite footballers was Roy Keane. Loved him. You know, you knew what you were getting every game with him, didn't you? Like, some of the footage you see of him arguing with Vieira in the tunnel, you know, he'd be in the trenches with you. And that's what you want. When I looked at in the England side I was with, would any of these lads be in the trenches with me? 100% yes, every time. So that, for me, as long as sports people have got that bit about them, yeah, they'll have my back in every day. But if I see them giving up and like a lot of the stuff we see on TV, feigning injuries and stuff, I can't tolerate that. Can't
deal with it. You've got a few quid to invest. What are you going to invest in?
I was thinking about this earlier. Do you know what? It's one of those things, isn't it? You've got to know what you're talking about. And,
do you?
Well, if you invest in your cash, yes. Look, I think if I was going to invest, I'd have to look for some advice. I'd speak to someone who knows about that. IFAs, I've got a couple of friends who are IFAs. Property is always a good one. Maybe invest in somewhere abroad, Airbnb, I don't know. All that kind of stuff, really. Then I could use it when no one's there. But yeah, I'd have to look at it hard. I know a lot of people have been doing the Bitcoin stuff and made a lot of money from that. But yeah, I'd probably start and then I'd fail miserably within the first month or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'd probably go down the property route. A bit boring, but
I bet there's a few that wish they got out a bit sooner, given the recent ongoings slide in crypto.
Yeah.
The last one. You've got one film that you can watch for the rest of your life. What is it?
I'll tell you what, I've watched it quite a lot recently when I've had a bit of spare time, and that's Maverick, the new Top Gun film. Absolutely love it. Yeah, absolutely love it. I love the old Jeremy Maguire. Love that. Now, Sporty and she was a route with me I could have looked at. So yeah, Jeremy Maguire, Snatch, any of those films. The Gentleman is up there. He's unreal.
Simon, you can tell he's been in a cricket hotel for months on end. He's just rattling off.
It's a tough one between Gentleman and Maverick, so I'm going to go Maverick.
Like it. We haven't had that one yet, Simon.
No, absolutely. When you ask these players, it's like, how many times have you watched it? Some people would give you like a double figure answer. Cricketers will give you a treble or quadruple figure answer.
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. I've watched 1,000 movies in one time.
we were always on planes, weren't we? Going long haul, so we watched 2 or 3 films on there. So we're film critics.
Love it. All right, look, it's been really good to have you on. Been a great guest, Simon Hartley, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Brilliant conversation.
Thank you, Simon.
Pleasure.
Cheers, Tom.
Good to hear it's all going so well, and we look forward to maybe having you on again soon.
That'd be perfect. Love to.
Top man.
Cheers, Simon.
Cheers.
You're listening to Podium Podcast with Simon Hartley and Tom May. This is the show that invites the world's top athletes to discuss life in and after professional sport. Podium Podcast is brought to you by True Potential Wealth Management. To find out more, visit domorewithyourmoney.co.uk.